Much love and greetings to you all, and welcome to another episode of Just in Time, where we talk about the end time message. Not the end of days, but things that are relevant in this present day and age. And right now, I would like to take the time out to say thank you to all of our supporters who has helped to make End Time TV a success.
This is Just in Time, discussion about everyday life from a biblical perspective. And now, here's your host, founder of HTL Ministry, Santo Moss.
Hi, and welcome to the season premiere of Just in Time. You're tuned in to End Time TV, and I'm your host, Santo Moss.
And I'm Paul Brown.
And today we're going to be talking about social norms. Social norms are, for those of you who are not familiar with social norms, it's defined as the behaviors and cues within a society or group. This sociological term has been defined as the rules that a group uses for appropriate and inappropriate values, beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. These rules may be explicit or implicit, enforced usually informally through social interactions. Some norms are developed intentionally, while others are unintentionally constructed. Some examples of some positive social norms are friend and family values, morale, having aspirations in life, peer groups' decision on attending college, positive role models, and institutions, etc. Some negative social norms are denigration of women, exploitation of sex, having kids out of wedlock, homosexuality, peer groups, use of drugs and alcohol, and sexual activity. But before we get off into this discussion, we went out into the community and we talked to some young adults to get their point of view on some positive and some negative social norms. So let's just go out to the streets and see what these young adults had to say.
I think positive social norms are starting to be highlighted over the course of the last, I would probably say, 5 to 8 years. Social norms have become, negative social norms have become more positive as people become more open-minded. So I think it's important that, that we continue to, kind of argue and debate these issues about social norms, because social norms are always changing. So it's important as young people that we understand, that to always be open-minded and to always see different people's perspectives.
Right.
I definitely think that the media hypes up stuff, but I think there is some truth to it at some level. But there's a lot of people doing a lot of good things, and there's a lot of people who are achieving and going beyond those. What's the negativity that's being perpetuated. Okay. So I think it's important that we do have to keep in mind that there are negative aspects, like kids out of wedlock that's happening, at too high a level. But there's a lot of people getting married and doing it the right way. So it's important that we bring that into the light, as a positive aspect.
I feel like today, through the media, you get the highlight of the negative effects a lot more. You hear about them, you see them a lot more. You don't typically see the positive unless they're using the positives to reinforce how bad the negatives are.
Right.
That's about the only time that you really hear about the positives. That's my opinion, though.
Okay.
Anything to add? No.
No.
I think they highlight more of the negative aspects.
Yeah.
You see TV shows like Teen Mom, these 14-year-old kids are having kids, and it's just not right. I mean, I don't know, you see sex outside of marriage all the time, on the show Sex and the City and everything.
Right.
So I'd say the media really highlights more of the negative aspects than they do the positive ones.
I think they are highlighted, but you have to look for them. They're not as prevalent as negative social norms are. I think the negative is definitely quoted more than the positive, especially in marketing and economic standpoints in a lot of companies. Negative definitely makes more money than positive, especially depending on the business and the career that people follow.
Okay.
I think what had really happened was there was a time when social norms were being highlighted, but then they stopped being, they quit becoming such a big deal, and with that being said, no one really cared to be. I'm assuming when you say social norms, you're talking about stuff like chivalry, like doing courteous things to other people. Now, yeah, again, like no one really needs to be courteous now that no one's getting any positive reinforcement from there, and they really shouldn't, because I believe we should always be kind to one another without expectation of what's the word I'm looking for? Expectation of like return. You don't need to do that because you shouldn't be doing everything that you do if you expect something back. You feel me? Right. We've got a lot of like, I think when you bring up stuff like the media, and they're watching things that they used to get shocked and offended at. We have Jason Voorhees, I guess, from Friday the 13th movies, and that used to shock and offend people, but it was comparatively wholesome? Not wholesome, but it wasn't so rough. But, we got numb to that. We got tired, and, really, we're just a bunch of bored people playing with rubber ducks in the bathtub, and now we've got bored of these rubber ducks. Now we want something that's going to shock us even more. I'm a theater major, and that's why I see a lot of this, coming up in plays and, film. There's a whole lot of, there's a whole lot of shock value. We need more shock value. So if we can just shock and offend more people, then I guess they're doing something right. But, yeah.
Well, actually, I think social norms, for the most part, here in Tuscaloosa, my experience here, the positive ones are being highlighted. I have a lot of friends that around here, and they're constantly talking about the value of hanging out with like family, friends. Not so much like the negative ones are not being highlighted. Like it seems like a lot of times here, people don't glorify it as other places I've been, because like I'll hang out like my undergrad over there. A lot of the negative ones kind of were glorified a little bit more than the positive ones, per se, but here's more of the positive ones. At least the people I'm around here, they don't really talk about the negative stuff.
I feel like social norms, the positive ones, aren't being highlighted. People are more on negative things now, and they're making the negative norms the positive norms now. Things that would have been negative at first are now positive. I feel like people have altered what the meaning of certain things are into something good. Yes, I feel like once figureheads do something, everybody else follow along. They feel like it's the appropriate thing to do, so they set the trend for what the social norms are.
I feel like they're not being highlighted because of the fact that,
people like to talk about negative things.
Yeah.
I feel that all social norms are there because when you come to a university and you have that conquest for knowledge and better yourself for the community, one of the things that you want to do once you leave the university is be an integral part of your society. So the positive social norms are there. Are they being highlighted? No, because you have a lot more people being focusing more on the party aspect of everything, just trying to make it through the little social realm that they try to see. When they don't take into account there's different social realms. We have the social realm within the library, social realm within education, social realm within even just Greek life, So it's there, but different things are being accentuated.
I think they try to not promote, but mostly what do we see in the media? Drinking, having sex, doing drugs. So I think people are just used to seeing that, so they kind of think it's acceptable.
Oh, if my favorite celebrities do it, I can do it too. Yeah. I'm not gonna get caught for consequences for it.
And even socially, even transcends TV and music. It goes to stuff like Twitter, Instagram.
Okay, so I think that people in general, not just the black community, think it's okay to use the N-word in their daily lives. They just use it freely because the media portrays it as socially acceptable to use the N-word. It's not. Do you think it's acceptable to use the N-word?
I just don't,
I don't. I don't think it's a positive thing.
It's not a positive thing at all.
But it's something that the media has made. They've made it become positive. Because of music and all that. But stop saying the N-word. I don't like it.
Wow, Brother Paul, some interesting answers and comments that we got there.
That they were.
Oh, yeah. And you know what was so fascinating, or I said what really surprised me, is that just about all of them said how entertainment has influenced society and the culture. Now, this is what, before I comment on that, one time I was listening to an interview done by a director here in Hollywood. I forgot exactly his exact title was, but he was a movie producer. And he said through entertainment that they have the ability to change and set the standard for the culture of the community. And now, hear these answers from these kids, and they're saying that entertainment plays a major role on why these social norms are set. And you know, it's not that the positive norm is not out there. You know, it's not being promoted as much as the negative. It's like the roles are almost going in reverse, like the one young lady said. And so, and I do believe that, you know, to a certain extent, because, you know, I always say this, that whoever controls the images, you know, controls the mindset. And what image is Hollywood putting out there? What image are we seeing on TV? What are we listening to? You know, when you tend to listen and watch these things, you know, you start to become that. But see, we as adults, you know, our minds are not young and impressionable like most preteens and teenagers. So, you know, we basically know how to decipher through things to know, you know, what can work for us and then what cannot work for us. But for the most part, whatever's being, the images being put out there, we tend to kind of lean towards whatever's being glorified or being highlighted, no matter what the age group is. And, you know, and a lot of these kids were just saying that, you know, that Hollywood, the mass media plays a major role in how the social norms are set. What do you think about that, Brother Paul?
I'm really not surprised that a lot of, you know, the college students said that. It does seem like entertainment has taken on a larger role in our society. Not that it wasn't always a big part of society to begin with, but it seems like in this particular generation, we're looking more to entertainment and the media to really give us identities, you know, to validate us. And because of that, when, you know, you see entertainment circles that don't really live up to that expectation, you know, we see it as such a negative thing, when the truth be told is we should have never relied on them in the first place to promote, you know, good or negative social norms, because they're businesses. That's all they are. They are businesses. So their main goal is to make money. So they make money off of whatever sells. Right. So if it's positive and it generates sales, then they'll go with, you know, what we deem as positive entertainment. If negativity sells and this is what's getting the ratings and this was, you know, bringing money into the networks, that's what they're going to promote as well. So it's just a matter of what we support. Right. So, you know, if we, you know, expect, you know, the entertainment and the media to promote certain images or to promote, you know, certain, you know, positive aspects, then we have to start supporting it. And if, you know, they continue to, you know, do these reality shows where they show the worst of the worst, but that's what's getting ratings, then that's what they're going to stick to. Right.
And that's so interesting that you talk about, you know, identity crisis, how we don't have, you know, we're letting society identify us. And, you know, me being a youth leader, I deal with, you know, a lot of the youth and hearing their stories that, you know, that they come to with, you know, when they're having these issues. And one of the main things that, you know, that they come with is that they really don't know, you know, who they are, what they want to do, or what they want to be, because most times they don't know their identity in Christ. Not trying to say that they are a lost cause, but they're looking and searching for something. And this light that's on the inside of them, that they feel they can't really understand it. And the evil of this world hates that light that's on the inside of them, because it's just like the words say, he who that is in you is greater than he who is in the world. And so, and then the God of this world and of this age hates that light. And so it comes with any kind of distraction to try to stop that light from shining, and for having the youth to really know who they are. You know, and sometimes, you know, dealing with a lot of the kids that comes from out of single parent households, most of the time is that the father is missing. You have some single parent households where the father is the custodial parent. But I'm just saying for most times now, they're in mother-headed households. And the fathers are not there to affirm their kids and to help them to give them their identity, because the father is the roadmap for the family and for their kids' journey through life. So when you don't have them and you don't have these strong men in place, these good righteous men of God in place to try to give their kids identity, they'll start to become the person who they want to be instead of the person who God wants them to be. So, me being a youth leader, I hear a lot of these stories about what these kids are going through, and then them living in this information age and this technological era, what they are actually going through. You got kids dealing with adult issues because of the things that they are exposed to, And then here's the thing too, here, Brother Paul, I want to say this, and it's like sometimes I think that the church don't really try to embrace them, and I'm not talking about embrace the lifestyle. But I'm talking about pay more attention to that youth group because they are the future of the church and the future of society. They are our next leaders. They are the ones that's going to really pick up that torch where we drop off at. So it's going to be up to us to try to instill those good morals and those good values in them. And so when we're going in and putting these morals and these values in them, we too have to be that example. And then these kids, and then they wanting, they looking for an answer from the church. But it's like the gospel has become too watered down. The things that need to be talked about are not that popular to be talked about in the church because the church feel like it's not that it's irrelevant, but that they don't know how to address the issue without offending someone. But it's not all about offending someone. It's all about someone's personal convictions. Now, all I'm doing is just putting the trash in the trash can. Right. Now, if the trash is getting on you, well, maybe you need to get out of the trash can, but not come necessarily with a message of condemnation, because it's not, Christ didn't come into the world to condemn the world, but through him that the world may be saved. So when we are dealing with the youth and we have to get the church involved, is that we got to get away from all of these feel-good sermons and start to deal with all of it, because you hear what these kids are saying, and there are all these things that are starting to become part of the social norm, and it's like we're getting desensitized to it. And then, in the church, and so, I'm not trying to say that your church or my church, I'm just talking about the body of Christ in a whole. Right. It's like it's becoming more about entertainment. They want to try to use the methods of the world to try to reach the people in the world when we were called out from the world to be separate from them. We have to understand, we have to get the knowledge of this age and the knowledge of this culture to be able to how to relate to the youth and how to be able to relate to those who are lost, to bring them in and to show them that there is a better lifestyle than what you're living at. You don't have to go to what the norm is set as, because when you're talking about hope is just a way out of conflict and a way out of confusion.
Absolutely. And with that being said, and this is, one of the things that, we have to learn how to do when it comes to even using the Bible to relate to people. Let them know that, okay, well, there were people in the Bible that had issues just like, some of these youth do. When we think about needing affirmation from the Father, right. One of the things that gets overlooked even in Genesis was when Seth was born. Seth was the younger brother of Cain and Abel, and Adam actually gave him the affirmation. He let him know that, okay, this is my son. This is in my image, in my likeness. And even Jesus, had to get affirmation from the Father when John the Baptist baptized him, and that's when the heavens opened and the Spirit descended upon him like a dove, and, the voice came from heaven saying, well, this is my son with whom I'm well pleased, I'm paraphrasing it. Right. But there is such an importance that comes with having your Father acknowledge you. Right. And one of the problems that I have with the current social norms is that we've kind of marginalized the role of a father. Now we complain about the results of not having a father around, right. But at the same time try to minimize the importance of his presence. Right. That father is supposed to be the strong man that protects the house. And when you remove the strong man or you've bound him, right. Now the house is open, to be looted and to be spoiled, and more or less.
Right, and that's good you said it, because that also makes it, if it's a single parent household, it makes it frustrating for the custodial parent, they have to play both parts of the man and woman.
And truth be told, you really can't do that. That's like, let's say you lose your hearing. Well, your other senses have to compensate for that, but it is never hearing though.
Right.
If you lose your sight, your hearing gets better. Your other four senses,
Right.
compensate for it, but they never ever replace sight.
Exactly.
So you do the best you can, but there's no substitute for sight.
Right.
Like if you're blind, you're blind.
Right.
That's like there's no getting around that. So we got to get back to the point to where we let the fathers be the father and the mothers be the mother, and free them up to be what they're best at. Because
Right.
if there was no need for fathers, then there would not have been a man involved in the conception process.
Right.
But I think because we've marginalized and minimized the role of men, then some women feel like they don't have it really doesn't matter who they choose because he's not important or we don't need him anyway, so it doesn't matter who you get. But when you realize the value of what you're entrusting your future to, then it causes you to make better decisions, or it causes you to want to make better decisions because you realize I have to count on this person. That's like, when you go to a car dealership and you want to buy a car, you have a particular standard in mind because you know that, okay, I'm going to need this car to get me back and forth. I need a car that's safe because, it's not going to be just me riding this car. I may have children one day and my children may have to ride in this car. So I want something that's safe, that's reliable, because I know what I expect out of my future.
Right.
And because we don't necessarily value men, or for that matter, we don't value women like we should, we don't really vet our choices out. We don't really properly screen them, or we don't even, really care about who we choose. But then we complain about, when things go wrong, where I chose the wrong person. Well, of course, that's pretty obvious now, but we got to go in with the mindset that, this man is important.
Right.
This woman is important. That who I have children with is very important because that's my entryway into the next generation.
But see, here's the thing here too, and and I'm gonna say this, not speaking out of partial ignorance, but speaking out of experience because I'm a single parent myself, and I always, and especially when dealing with the youth, but this is this affect all age groups. Is that you got to be careful who you lay down with and have your children with. It's out of the order of God to, be unwedded with children. And so, and I understand the conflict that it can cause, because like one of the things that I had experienced was that, when I had, my child, and I wasn't married and, people, I was kind of, it was because how the church looked at it. It made me feel bad. I was ashamed and didn't tell nobody. I hid it for months. I might even hid it from my parents because I was just so ashamed how the church looked at it, And I had to understand that, having the child out of wedlock was not a sin. It was actually fornication, what was the sin, the sex itself. And so I had to really sit back and then look at it and just try to do things the right way from here on so I don't make the same mistake again. Not saying that the child was a mistake, but doing things out of the order of God. And one of the things that I had learned is that, I was almost forced into marriage, to marry my daughter's mother by them telling me, say, hey, you need to marry, y'all got a child together, and y'all need to go ahead and make this happen. But this is coming from some of the older saints. Now, what they saying made sense because now, marrying the mother of my child would have been, for the child's sake, would have been a good reason. But in my mind, it would have been for, the wrong reason. Things just happen that way. I had looked at it to where, I wanted to make everything and do it the right way. But, sometimes don't always work out that way. And, when I talk to these preteens and these teenagers, I tell them, you don't want, family, husbands, children, all of these things are going to come. It's going to come, but there's an order of how you should do this. You go to school, get your education, get everything set up and get it lined up instead of doing it backwards, because when you do it backwards, it's going to make it that much harder. And listen to this statistics right here I just looked up. Now, it says this: less than 2% of teen moms earn a college degree by the age of 30. Less than 2% of teen moms. So what that is saying that the majority of teen moms now, just moms, who have kids during their teenage years, they will not obtain a college degree until they're over the age of 30. And see, I was kind of looking at that like, is that true? I don't know. But then I actually started to look at it, because the reason why it'd be after the age of 30, because during that time between high school and, and 30 years old, in 30 years old, they're spending most of their time trying to raise their child. And so now once the child is grown and about to go off to school themselves, then now the mother have enough time to go ahead and try to pursue her career and get a better quality of living, because now she got to play catch up from all the years that she was raising this child. And see, two things can happen. Either it's going to force that mother or the mother to take up the role of both parents, while she's raising this child as a single mother, or it's going to be harder on I ain't gonna say hard on the grandparents, or the grandparents are going to have to be the one to help raise the child. So we just have to be careful with how we do things. And then sometimes you mess around and get you a crazy baby mama or a baby dad. I hate saying that term because to me it's such a derogatory term. And boy, they can take you down through there.
Absolutely.
And this is why I always say, do not have any kids where you don't lay your head at. Now, I especially address this to all the young men. And I don't mean you shacking up together, y'all just living together, that common law. No, I mean you need to be married. You need to be married. So don't just go around having, I don't understand how some guys, they can have 6 and 7 kids, and basically they have 3 and 4 households they're taking care of. You got 2 kids over here, 3 over there, 1 here, 1 there, and by different women. And you working a dead-end job. I'm just wondering, how are they taking care of all of these kids? Because one household got to be lacking somewhere. And seeing for a child now growing up without, like you say, bound up that strong man, he's been removed from out of that household. It calls for the youth to have like a resentment, causing that child to have a resentment towards authority figure. It causes them to not have an identity and anything of that like that causes them not to be affirmed.
Absolutely. And I think that's, like I said, one of the things that we have to work on when it comes to changing societal norms, because we now live in this YOLO society. You only live once.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, you only live once, but you want to make sure that you're living in the best possible way.
Right.
Or at least we should want to make sure that we're living in the best possible way. And, one of the consequences of that you only live once lifestyle is, it causes people to be incredibly reckless with their present.
Right.
And when you're that reckless with your present, you eventually wreck your future. I mean, let's just be honest. You make bad decisions now, and there's going to be a harvest later on, and you won't like the harvest. And then we're at the point where we wish, I wish I could have done it all over again.
Right.
Well, this is why you have people in front of you now to try to tell you and to try to guide you into making the right decisions, because, like I said, every decision has a consequence.
Right.
And it may be, tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It may be 6 years from now. It may be 10 or 15 years from now before you see the consequences of those decisions. But, we got to get out of this YOLO mindset.
Right.
That, you live once. But, like I said, what good is it when the quality of your life is horrible? Right. When the quality of your decisions is horrible? Okay, sometimes maybe living once may be a good thing.
Right.
Because, you don't want to have 2 or 3 lifestyles of the same dysfunctional decisions.
Right.
And we got to get to a point to where, like I said, we show that we value men and women. Because society, especially the entertainment industry, doesn't have much in the way of expectations of men and women, and boys and girls for that matter. And it's easy to knock up, all these women when you don't have a sense of identity for yourself. How can you expect a man to be a father when he's never known how to be a son?
It's deep there, Brother Paul. And you know what the biggest thing going, at least talked about here in today's society, is sexual immorality. I mean, everything that you see from the media to videos to video games, books, magazines, it's just sex. That's it. It's just sex.
And don't get me wrong, sex is a beautiful thing.
Right.
But there are boundaries.
Okay.
It's
here.
And of course, it's natural to have sexual desire like that. We are designed to be sexual creatures. That's part of, procreation. Right. That's a part of, fulfilling one of the directives that God gave Adam was to be fruitful and multiply. So, of course, to be fruitful, you gotta have, a desire to plant trees and to, bear fruit. So, like, it's natural and there's nothing wrong with that. So it's not saying, okay, well, be a robot. But at the same time, respect your body to know that everybody shouldn't be privy to it.
Right.
That is meant to be enjoyed within the confines of marriage. And that's not saying that, that we haven't made, bad decisions here and there. That's not saying that, I haven't fallen short, just as a lot of people have. But just because you've fallen short is not an excuse to stay down, or it's not an excuse to keep falling.
Exactly. And what comes with, what I see now, what comes with a lot of this sexual misconduct is, if I hope I'm saying this right, misogyny and misandry. I see a lot of that now. And when you look at how society are, portraying women, and it's just, if they're not being called out of their name, they're being looked at as sexual objects. Yeah. And and then the reverse effect, or should I say not a reverse effect, but the backdrop to that is misandry, and that causes for women who is against, had to come up with some kind of reply against this misogyny. It turns them against the man. And they kind of feud the two against each other. And the denigration of women, that's what I see a whole lot going on. But the crazy part about it, though, Brother Paul, I see that a lot of women are being more accepting of it. Being called out in their names. Just like, for instance, I can't call you a B. We already know when I say the B word. We already know what that is. Yeah. You just can't be a B. No, you got to put the bad B in front of it to be acceptable. You just can't call them like that, just say that you just a B. No, you got to put the bad in front of it. And then it's like, that has become a part of the norm. And I have actually witnessed this and seen women smile when that comment is thrown at them. I'm like, what? Are you serious? I ain't talking about just, young adults and preteens and teenagers. I'm talking about grown people too.
I'm just, it boggles the mind, to be perfectly honest.
Exactly.
And of course, I understand, where it said in the rap song, and okay, music is one of those things where, you can say just about anything in a song and just write it off as it's just entertainment.
Right.
So if, one of these rappers, starts referring to women as bad bees or whatever.
Right.
He gets away with it. Not saying that he should, but he does get away with that because it's just a song. Or, the response to that is, well, I know he's not talking about me. So, I can dance to it because it ain't talking about me. He's talking about somebody.
Right.
But, you get enough people dancing in the room. He's talking about somebody. There's no possible way that everybody that's dancing this song and celebrating this song, that he's not talking about anybody in that room or anybody that's dancing to that song. But, it's a song.
Right.
But, if I was to, start identifying women as such, there would be a backlash, understandably so, because it's still a B word. So they can call themselves that, which means I'm not really a fan of the term anyway. Right. But, that's how things have shifted.
It is. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Because at one point, if you called a woman a B, you was about to get cut.
You will get cut.
Yeah. and now they've started identifying themselves, but that's because of how, we've let the entertainment, kind of dull the edge off of such words.
Right.
So where now, we're even having debates about, can we use the B word or use the N word or the H word, and,
Right.
And it's just funny because, like I said, 30 years ago, this would not have even been open for discussion, because like I said, if you called a woman a B, that was incredibly disrespectful. It didn't matter what you put in front of it. It didn't matter what type of adjective you used. It was still insulting. And see, that's how, that's proof of how societal norms have shifted, because things that weren't acceptable, in our parents' generation, and they've become more accepted as, generations past. And it may be because of what they've grown up with. See, like I was growing up, when NWA, was on the scene. And, you heard plenty of B's. But, if my parents had heard, that those types of songs and heard that type of language being used, okay, I couldn't listen to it.
Right.
Because, because of them, that was, like I said, it was disrespectful to women.
Exactly.
Now, that type of song, that type of music being played, and that's considered kind of tame now.
It's a part of the norm. It is a part. And something else, though, Paul? along with all of this sexual misconduct and denigration of women, is the dress code has changed with it too. Because here with the guys, you know, this metrosexual, I call it the homosexual look. Yeah, I said it. You know, they're gonna get mad at me for saying it, but yeah, that look has become part of the norm. You know, that's the end thing now. And then, you know, you see the women out here, you know, they dressing up being sexually suggestive and all seductive. They got the headbands around their chest and they got the little bitty skirts. And you know, the way that you present yourself is the way that people are going to perceive you. And then you get mad when, you know, you get somebody who's, who's talking at you in the wrong kind of way. I mean, but you coming out here dressed like you're like you're in a brothel. I mean, how do you expect somebody to, you know, address you? Then how can I take this guy serious coming to me with some skinny jeans on? Isn't that like a woman apparel?
I would have thought so.
Yeah, it is. And I'm just like, it's like, it just amazes me. If you go to the high schools now, I mean, that's what they're dressed as. You got guys around here dressing in women's apparel, and it's a part of the end thing. That's so crazy. And I just want to also talk about the point too, what you were saying about the use of the N-word. And that was just like the young lady said here, you know, we asked the question about, you know, what she thought about, you know, these social norms and how she said she hates the N-word. And I totally agree with her. And then here's the thing. African Americans is the only race of people who have took a word that was meant to degrade them, to make them look as property, and to be very demeaning of them, and we have taken that word to mean something good. You know, that word, they used to sell us on the markets, you know, up there with the donkeys and the mules. But see, here's the thing though, we was up there with the donkeys and the mules, but we was considered to be less than livestock. And now we trying to take this word and embrace it to mean something good. I mean, are you serious? Now, they say it can be used interchangeably. You know, well, they saying, you know, I know it's part of my expression, but, you know, there's a difference between nigger and nigga. And I'm like, oh, yeah, really, what's the difference? Because what the word stems out of hatred and conflict, when you depend on, I ain't gonna say depend on how you use it, when you use it, it still has a lot of hostility that comes out of it. And I always use this example. For instance, that's just like, you in confrontation with someone, y'all about to get at each other and fight and about to kill each other. And I'm like, well, Brother Paul, you gonna fight this nigga? You gonna do this to him? Y'all gonna go and then you gonna get fuel like, yeah, I'm gonna do something to him. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I can't stand this nigga. But now, if I was to come at you with this approach and be more like, Brother Paul, you really gonna shoot that brother? See, now you're not looking at this person in a demeaning kind of way or looking at him as being property or material. Now you're looking at this individual as a person. You know, you're looking past what's being presented and now you're looking into the heart of the matter. But we as blacks have tried to take in this word and shape it into mean something good. This word has become so popular now to where you got white people calling each other niggas.
Yeah. And
I mean, part of my expression, I hate to keep saying that word, but now I'm not glorifying it at all. You know, and it just, you know, and it does something to me when I hear it being a part of people conversation, you know, and it all depends on the class of white person. If he's cool with the blacks, accepted, but if he's not, it's considered to be a racial slur. You know,
and even in those type of situations, you know, there's no universal card. I tell you that much.
Right.
So even if you can use that word among, you know, your friends and they don't have a problem with that, realize that you can't just use that around any black person and expect there not to be a possibly violent backlash.
Yeah.
You know, now of course it is wrong to want to punch somebody for making those type of, you know, words, you know, and using it in that general direction. But there's a possibility that it may happen. So, you know, like I say, it's just amazing to see, like I say, how societal norms have shifted. Because at one point, if that word was used, you know, ended in A, you wouldn't have used it in the presence of white people because, you know, you were worried that, you know, you don't want to feel like you're giving them a license to say that word. Even though, mind you, they was using the word long before, you know, we ever tried to, I guess, appropriate it and use it for our own ends.
Right.
So it's just funny to see, like I said, there's literally been a dramatic shift in the last 30, 40, 50 years as to how we relate to each other. And, you know, how we relate as men and how we relate as women, there's been an incredible shift, and I won't say that it's completely for the worse, but a lot of it is gotten pretty bad.
Yeah, and you're right, and it's like we have embraced this word, like I say, that was meant to demoralize us. But I bet you won't go out here and you call a Dutch a cheesehead. You won't go out here and call an Asian a chink without getting stoned to sleep, because they're not going to accept that from their own kind or anyone else, because they understand the hostility of the word and what the word means. But it's like us, it's okay. Oh man, we got all the videos, all in the rap song. We pump our fish to it. We just glorify it.
But see, one thing that has to be, pointed out is they have their sense of identity. So
Exactly.
they refuse to let you call them that's anything contrary to their identity.
Right.
So that's, one of those things that we have to work on, in our society, is having a proper identity first.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you can't call me out my name if I don't know my name. See, that's a problem. A lot of
Right.
us don't know what our names are. So,
Right.
When people call us out of our names, we don't even have a benchmark to compare it to.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you don't realize that, that the God's called you his beloved, that you are a daughter of God, then, if somebody call you a bad bee, you might think that's a compliment.
Right, right.
And the same thing, as men, when you realize that you're a son of God, you realize, who you are in the earth.
Right.
That that people can't come at you and talk about you sideways, and you accept that because that's the only identity you've been given.
Right.
So we gotta do a better job as men, of giving our children their proper identity before we send them into the world. We can't let people go find themselves in the world. That's like the worst place you can send a child.
Right.
With no identity, is to let them go find themselves, because at this point, society will always label them as whatever's convenient for them.
Gotcha.
So if society, if it's convenient for society for you to be, like I said, a N-word, then that's what it would call you, and that's what you would begin to internalize, and that's how you identify yourself as that. Or, if somebody thinks that you're their punching bag, and they would deal with you as a punching bag, and you would begin to believe that, that's who you are, and nothing can be further from the truth.
Right. And Brother Paul, I have got to talk about this. And boy, they're going to snap me into for saying this. Talk about the next biggest thing going far as social norms, and that's homosexuality. Oh, yeah. Homosexuality. First off, let's get an understanding. First off, I do not hate homosexual. I don't have no type of homophobia. I've actually loved homosexuals just like God loves homosexuals. But just don't like the sin that they're dealing with, and God don't like the sin that they are dealing with. And we try to overlook, those things in the Bible that talks and pertain about same sex. And here's the thing. First off, I think that, the church needs to be more accepting of homosexuality. All right? Now, let me explain what I mean when I say this. When I say accepting of it, I'm saying we should not stop them from coming to church. We should not condone the lifestyle. We need to be more accepting of that person to try to understand what they are going through. Because I sat down and actually talked to a person who was struggling with homosexuality to get an understanding, like what's actually going on with this person and why they're like this. And the majority of people who are caught up in homosexual acts, the majority of them have been victim of rape, child molestation, incest. The majority of them. And I had to sit down and talk with this person. It was very enlightening. And I had found out some amazing things that I didn't really understand what they was dealing with. And, and this person was just telling me, I heard stories like with people telling me that, I heard this story about this one young lady was that, she was raped she was molested by her father as a child. And so now, now that she's in adulthood and she go out and want to date men, she can't date men because every time she get close to get that affection from a man, or she said when she went out and tried to have sex with a man, it reminded her of when her father used to molest her. But when she was with a woman, it made her feel comfortable. But see, here's the thing now. She don't like that lifestyle. She don't want to be there. So those are the ones we have to be more embracing of. The one that wants deliverance. Now, the ones who don't want it, they say that God made me this way. This is who I am. And don't Lady Gaga got a movement come out, born this way or something, if I'm not mistaken, having people to accept who they are. But it's really, what it is a homosexual movement. That's what it's all about. You know, this born this way and accept me the way it is, her movement. That's all it is. But what I'm saying is that we have to understand, you know, what they are going through. But the ones that won't understand, the ones that won't deliverance, we embrace them. We bring them into the church, you know, and talk to them. And then those who don't want it, hey, if y'all want to have y'all laws, give it to them. If y'all want to go down to the local magistrate, go ahead, you can have it. If y'all want to go out and have a high medical bill because of all the diseases and things that comes with homosexuality, you can have that. I'm not against that. You can have the pass the law, y'all can have it. But my thing is, do not try to make the church embrace your sinful lifestyle. That's the only thing I have a problem with. You can't make us be accepting it. I'm a Christian. I am a child of God. I don't believe in that. I know what my God says about that. You know, I'm not going to be accepting of that. You know, there's a difference between acceptance and tolerance. You know, I have to tolerate this because I have to live and work and dwell among you people, but I don't really have to go out here and be accepting of your lifestyle, but I do tolerate you. You know, now here's the thing. They come to the church, let them come to the church. If they want to get married, don't say that you won't marry them. No, don't say that. See, now I'm speaking wisdom. See, what I'm saying is that if they want to, if a homosexual couple comes to the church and they want to get married and they say, I want my pastor to marry me, this is why I've been going to church at, and you said that you are accepting of us, so we want you to marry us. Okay, here it is. Now, what's going to happen is that when you come to my counseling session, I'm going to teach you the word of God of what he says that the union in holy matrimony is between man and a woman. Right. Now, after you go through my counseling session, we'll see if you still want me to marry you or you want to go down to the local magistrate and get married. Because I'm going to teach you according to the word of God. Let me read this to you here, Brother Paul. This is coming out of Genesis 1, verses 27 and 28. And it says this. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. Then God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. See, in verse 28, it said, then God blessed them. The word, I want to focus more on this word bless. This is the second time that the word bless was used in the Bible. And I really like to say the first blessing because he first spoke it to animals and then he second spoke it to man. But I'm saying the word blessed the first time that we heard it. Okay. And God gave it to them to procreate. So the first blessing ever spoke of was to procreate, but it was the union of man and woman, designed how a woman is supposed to have a child, produce a child, and the man is supposed to help in that reproduction. Right. So when you're saying bless God, that's what God bless the union of man and woman in holy matrimony. So you're saying same-sex marriages. I never read that nowhere where God said that he has blessed that. You can get married, but it's not going to be blessed according to the word of God. You know, and so when it says that when he blessed them and be fruitful and multiply, you know, the child always going to be a blessing whether you're married or unmarried. You know, it's just the sin in between, you know, adultery and fornication. Because here's the thing now, you know, fornication transfer over into adultery once you get married if you never went without practicing self-control or restrained from having sex. Because it's both the same thing. Fornication and adultery is the same thing. It just when you get married, if you ain't tame that thing, it's going to mature into adultery. Absolutely. So just going back to homosexuality, and I know they're gonna snap me in two for this, but they can't cancel the show. But I'm gonna talk about it because it has to be addressed. And we can't. And it's like this homosexual agenda. It has silenced the church to where they don't want to speak out against it. You know, somebody gonna have to be bold and speak out against that agenda because this right here is the spirit of Antichrist is already here, but it's really gonna usher in the presence of the enemy himself because you got to get him desensitized to it because his nature is the total opposite of God's nature. God is heterosexual in nature, and the devil is homosexual in nature. I ain't talking about nothing sexual, but I'm talking about in the way that God produces life and then the way that the devil want to defile life.
Right. I mean, the devil can only try to, corrupt, defile, and imitate, but he can never actually create.
No.
The devil is always sought to pervert everything he got his hand into.
Right.
Now, as far as, homosexuals go, I mean, they're people. We are all people, right? And, we all come to Christ with a different struggle. So
right.
I don't, begrudge anybody, who has that particular struggle. It's not my struggle,
right?
But I understand that, that I said, just because your struggle isn't my struggle doesn't mean it's not a struggle. So, I try to make it a point to be sensitive and cognizant of that because, like I said, what good is it, to try to run somebody away from Christ? Like that
right.
violates, the edict he's given all of us. We're to win souls to
right,
Christ.
Exactly.
We are supposed to be ministers of reconciliation. So how can you reconcile somebody to God and, you're speaking hateful language or you're trying to drive them away? And it's like this. I know I'm saved. So I have no reason to try to keep somebody else from being saved, from being delivered, if that's what they want. That's what Pharisees do.
Right.
They want to get inside and they want to close the door and keep everybody else out so they can feel better about being inside. Well, what's the point of being inside the room of salvation if you're not sharing it?
Right.
He called us to be givers. He didn't call us to be selfish.
Right.
So, understanding that, okay, homosexuals and homosexuality are two different things.
Right.
Homosexuals may practice homosexuality, but, you can love the person and hate the sin.
There you go.
And, that's not being homophobic.
Right.
That's just standing up for, for standing up for your faith, standing up for what, what God said. So, like I said, discrimination is never justified.
Exactly. I totally agree with you.
Legal discrimination because, they pay into the system just like I do.
Right.
They gotta pay in, to the Affordable Health Care Act, just like the rest of them. So from a legal standpoint, it's never justified to discriminate, on that. Now, like I said, the church, obviously it has, a duty to oppose sin, period. It's not, limited to homosexuality. The church is supposed to oppose sin in any form. And, this is just, it's just another one of those. We like to say, when no sin is bigger than the other, okay, you're right. And the church is not supposed to discriminate when it comes to sin.
Right, but the consequences are different. Now, that's what they have to look at. When you say that no sin is greater than the other, but there are different consequences.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. And see, and here's the thing. I'm going to tell you just like this, though, Brother Paul. There is no nice way to talk about homosexuality without offending someone. It's just no way around it. It's always going to start up an argument. People are always going to get revved about. They're always going to do that. But still, as believers in the true and living God, we still have to accept these people. We still have to accept them. We preach the gospel to the ones that want to be out, because believe it or not, it's a lot of people that's caught up in this homosexual lifestyle that don't want to be there. They really don't. You'll be so surprised. They don't want to be there. This just came in to I want to go to social media real quick. And this is coming from our Facebook, and this is a comment from SD Spence. And SD Spence said, media does not promote positive aspects because it doesn't boost ratings. And this is their comment that they're making about social norms. And once again, like you say, everybody say that media has a big effect on the reason why positive social norms, are not being promoted. And something else I want to talk to you about here, Brother Paul, and I want to talk to the audience about. And this right here, I feel is going to become a part of the social norm. I some years ago, it was back like 2001 and 2002. I was working at the time. I was working in the warehouse, in the clothing warehouse, and I was talking to some guys, about technology and the way it was advancing. And this when the internet was in its infancy. And it wasn't real big. It was just coming out. And what happened was this guy came out with a cell phone with the picture video. But see, it didn't have the videos like we see now. It was more showing the picture transitioning instead of the actual MP4 file or the flash player. So it was looking at the video, and I was like, man, I said, I said, technology is going to become part of the norm. I said, it's going to be controlling every aspect of our life. It's going to be to where we're going to have it in our homes, and it's just going to, I said, it's just going to be a part to where we are not going to be able to get around it. And I said, they're going to use nanomachines and nanotechnology. And I was explaining to them what nanotechnology and machines were, and they was kind of looking at me like I was talking about some extreme sci-fi. And now when you look at it now, they have actually put a computer in the palm of your hands through our smartphones. Yeah. And so now when I go back and I talk to these guys, and they was like, man, Santo, you was right. This all this stuff you said over back long ago, we starting to see that stuff now. They said you was absolutely right. And now I came across an interesting video in this technological society that we're living in. And we now have the first form of AI. We have artificial intelligence. And now this here, I feel, is going to become a part of these social norms. And it's the very first the world's first bionic man. A Swiss researcher, Dr. Berthold Meyer, is the inventor of the world's first bionic man. Mr. Myers was born without a left hand, and he wanted to prove what science can offer for people like him through the most advanced human prosthesis through the use of bionic parts and limbs. So here I want to talk about and introduce the very first world's bionic man, and he go by the name of Rex. Let's have a look.
Well, now, over to someone who I couldn't even hold a microphone to. Rex. Who knows? One day, my successor?
It is all about me. I have got artificial limbs, synthetic blood, and a mechanical heart. Find out why experts spent $1 million to bring me to life.
Not only can he speak,
I feel exposed.
Talk to Rex, and he can listen. He can see through a chip wired into his retina. Damage him and he would bleed artificial blood that carries oxygen from his nano-engineered lungs, pumped around his body by an electronic heart. Strictly speaking, he's not a robot. His parts aren't designed to work together, but each one either is or soon could be part of a living human being. Most of us would agree that a human being is greater than the sum of its parts. But what this bionic man so clearly illustrates is just how many parts science can now create.
This is amazing.
Rex is the embodiment of a journey made by Swiss researcher Berthold Meyer to discover exactly what science can offer people like him who rely on bionic parts. Mr. Meyer was born without a left hand. In a documentary about his quest, Meyer discovers the latest bionic limbs, superior even to his own.
This is just awesome.
May I shake your hand? That is absolutely incredible. Despite a personal interest in limbs, Mr. Meyer is just as impressed by internal bionic organs under development.
One of my personal favorites is the artificial blood that runs through these tubings. But this is not real blood, this is nanoparticles. And I thought that was absolutely science fiction. So I thought that was very, very impressive. Also the fact that they're very close to an implantable artificial kidney that will actually be able to replace a failing kidney without the necessity of a kidney transplant. Now think of the great benefits some technology like that would bring.
Come with me if you want to live.
But along with the benefits come some important questions. Should bionic parts aspire to visions of the future and give us superhuman power?
Should we allow, for example, people to replace electively their healthy limbs with artificial ones that are more capable and powerful? Should we allow that? If yes, what are the consequences? If no, why not? These questions should be asked now and not when the technology becomes available.
A fully bionic human is still a thing of science fiction, but any of these parts could be appearing in a body near you sooner than you think.
Still, he is pretty amazing. He stars in a new film, The Incredible Bionic Man, on the Smithsonian Channel. And this is Bertolt Meyer, the host of the documentary, a social psychologist at the University of Zurich, and an inspiration for Frank's creator. Good morning, Bertolt.
Good morning, Vinny.
I can't help but notice you have a somewhat creepy twin next to you. He is meant to, in fact, look like you.
His face was modeled after a 3D scan of mine, but I think it looks rather mortifying.
Tell us a little bit about the Bionic Man. So he is close to 50% of the body in terms of something being reproduced.
Right, the purpose of the Bionic Man project was to find out what it looks like if we get all of the spare parts for the human body that we already have today and put them together in one place. So he's really meant to showcase the current state of medical bionic technology. So we have retinal implants in his brain that pick up, well, if he had a brain, he would have a retinal implant, that pick up the image from this tiny camera that is then transmitted directly into the person's brain, restoring a sense of vision to the blind. And this is not science fiction. This device has received FDA approval only 2 days ago and will go into actual people. There's a few great things about him that I find amazing. For example, in his artificial circulatory system, there is artificial blood, the first prototype of real artificial blood made of nanoparticles that have the ability to bind and give off oxygen, just like real blood. And all of these amazing discoveries that we've made along the way that show us how far we've come already in replacing parts of the body.
Pretty interesting. I have to say it's pretty interesting.
I can just smile. That's all I can do is smile.
I mean, it was only a matter of time, man. And when you look at entertainment, I mean, like I said, it goes way back to, even the days of Star Wars and Star Trek, where, you saw, Luke Skywalker have a bionic hand to replace the hand that he had lost. So it was only a matter of time before, what we call sci-fi became reality. It's amazing to see, what you've seen in movies and what you've seen in TV shows and even cartoons about the possible technological advances that, where machines become more and more, integrated into our society. And now we're getting to the point where we're about to cross that threshold, altogether. So, who knows? There may very well be a Skynet, or there may very well be a Matrix, in the not so distant future.
And this is what is so amazing about this whole thing. And if you paid attention to what he said this is no longer science fiction. He said it's been approved by the FDA. And see, it's just like any of man's heroic feats. They're going to try to use the technology to the best of its ability. So don't be surprised if they will make this AI a part of society to where we can afford it. I mean, I'm talking about they're actually coming up with some skin, like trying to make some grafts of human skin to put around this robot. The only thing that he's missing is a brain. That's the only thing he's missing. He can walk, he can talk, he can do all of this stuff. And it's going to get better. And they put $1 million into this project? $1 million. And so you think that they're going to let this go to waste? And I'm interested to see this documentary to see how, his journey through how all of this came about. And it is just like, I won't be surprised if people actually start to want to start dating these artificial intelligence robots. You think they binding up the strong man now and wait till Alex and his crew come out and start to walking and talking and, and taking over society. I mean, I know I'm being kind of extreme, but I know that there's some truth in that to a certain extent because it's just now in its infancy. This is in the early stages. I want to see where this thing is going to progress to. And I'm going to make a prediction right now and just say that this artificial intelligence that we have seen in movies years ago is now have become a part of our society. And it's no longer, like he says, science fiction. And they're going to make this Alex robot more affordable for us to have in our household, or it's going to be used in the workplace. But you better believe that this artificial intelligence is going to start to become part of our societal norm. And I'm going to predict that. And you heard it first on this show. All right, and we're coming up on the end of our show, and we have a word for the moment. We will never end this show with, we'll talk about all the problems, but we do like to give solutions to all the things that we talk about. And the word for the moment comes out of Ezekiel 33, verses 6 through 8. But if the watchman sees the word coming and does not blow the trumpet, and the people are not warned, and the sword comes and takes any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood I will require at the watchman's hand. So you, son of man, I have made you a watchman for the house of Israel. Therefore you shall hear a word from my mouth and warn them for me when I say to the wicked, O wicked man, you shall surely die, and you do not speak to warn the wicked from his ways. That wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood I will require at your hand. So now in context, this is actually God speaking to Ezekiel about how when he give him revelation and speak through him, giving him prophecy about things that are to happen, that is forth to come, that he is supposed to speak it to the people. And to understand who Ezekiel was, he was different from like all the other prophets like Hosea and Jeremiah and the other public prophets, because those were more public prophets that gave prophecy to the nations. And see, Ezekiel, he was more of a personal prophet. You know, he talked to people mostly one-on-one. He had some public revelation for the people, but he really spoke one-on-one. So now we can take the principle from this and say that when we see that all of the evil things that are going on in this world and we don't speak out against it and we say nothing about it, we are just as, God look at us, that we are just as guilty as they are, because we know and we won't say anything to warn them. So we have to be salt and to season this earth with the word of God. So things that we see, we have to be bold, and we can't be silent. And we have to get that spirit, that bold spirit of God up in us to speak out against the things that we see that are wrong, and especially when it affects directly in the body of Christ. So we have this word for the moment, and we take that with us, and then we let that word pierce our hearts, and we stand up on this word. And when it says that you are to be a watchman, it's speaking from a spiritual sense, being a spiritual watchman. And so here we also want you to follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and you can also watch us on YouTube. And you can go to www.htlministry.org, and you can also support us in our 90-day $2 challenge. And we're aiming to raise $5,000 in 90 days, and all proceeds will go to various programs of HTL Ministry. We hope you enjoy the show. You have a great day, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you here at the same time next week.